Okay, so now we are moving into the final session for this event, and here is the most exciting session. The topic seems to be very interesting. It's on the data privacy concerns in AI and agentic era. I think this will be an amazing fireside discussion with the top-led industry leaders on the podium here. So AI runs on the data, but without privacy, right? The power quickly turns into liability. So our final session panel is being moderated by Stephen Matthews. He's the chairman of the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, Karnataka. Pleasure to have you here, sir. He'll be the moderator for the session. He's joined by Navi, chairman of FDPPI. Can I have a round of applause, please, for everyone? Thank you, sir. Yeah, just be there. And Ramakant Mohapatra, Vice President, Data Protection and Governance at CISA. Yeah. Malini Rao, Global Head of Cybersecurity Product Operations at Halion. And Akhilesh, Director at Privacy Pillar. So here we'll have this fantastic fireside chat session between these leaders. Over to you, sir.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Agentic AI. I think the key aspect about agentic AI is its autonomous nature. The fact that agentic AI can make decisions on its own and take actions on its own in a way that's more independent than many other AI models. And so the question really is, how does that affect privacy? And how does it affect the use of our personal information? So I have a great panel before me. I'll start with Ramakant. Ramakant, can you tell us a bit about what you see as the major privacy issues in the use of agentic AI?
Yes, privacy is around the user data, right? The personal data that is how. And the agentic AI is nothing but the autonomous and the more proactive way of how to handle and process the data. Giving that, I'll give an analogy in the data lifecycle all of us go through every day. Starting from the data collection, where a lot of data is being collected autonomous way and without waiting for the consent from the users. And also, it also has got a lot of data that is collected without the agentic AI knowledge, because it doesn't see that whether it is personal data or not personal data. So that is one way. It collects also for any purpose. It doesn't have any kind of particular purpose because it has not been paid accordingly, right, at the time. So moving to that, then user has to always give the consent to process the data. But however, in this case, without user consent, even agentic AI go and start collecting and processing without knowing whether for what it is collected and why, for what processing. And another thing to do that, the processing aspect, if you look at for all of us, user profiles, user behavior analytics, all the kind of issues that you see for all of us, you can just analyze that there is one aspect which is there, which user is not knowing that what model is being done, what are the risks and what is the accuracy levels in the processing. That is one of the bigger problem which is there in aspect of the accuracy levels, because if the accuracy level is 80%, still 20% left behind, which may cause harm to all of us in this room if anything goes wrong. Moving to this little bit on that, as we all are very much more autonomous, automation and other things going on, we sometimes forget about the cross-border data transfers. Agentic AI in the cloud era, it is not located in the localization. It goes traverse all around the world and give you the data. So the multiple regulations, cross-border regulations are not highly regulated at this time to prevent this without knowledge. Although we may have different mechanisms, cross-border contractual agreements and other stuff, but in nutshell, it doesn't do. Finally, all of us in this room are not well aligned or not well trained about the AI, its perspective and how it is done. So training and awareness also is one of the issue. And another point that I want to highlight, if you look at multiple countries, they are enacting a lot of data privacy laws, and also they are coming on top of that now AI Act. If you look at US, Europe, and even also in India, the AI Vision. So a lot of things are moving towards that because everyone wants to be digital area, right? But we never know that what are the impact that is happening. And nevertheless, data ethics is also one of the things that is around all of us. We do not want that our data should be unethically accessed or highlighted, right? So having said all this, the final one I want to leave with the data security that I think all the panelists before us, we spoke about a lot, right? So in this particular one, the Agentic AI passed through multiple different platforms and multiple different system applications. It doesn't rest in one. It just connect through its own channel. So hence, the APIs or the interfaces, we do not know whether they're secured and how it has been done and whether who does that, right? That is one. And finally, there is no traceability right now that who has collected data, which AI model is doing that, and how it is being done. So finally, the accountability rates. Accountability means whether if there is a data breach, who is going to be accountable? We do not know from which AI model it would have been come, what is the traceability, what is the audit log, how to file the different kind of compensation penalty. So giving summary, so it is good to have, but we should have the responsible AI as aspect. That means we should know that what is happening and why it is happening, and also train the model to better accuracy with knowledgeable base.
So does it mean that it's a lot more difficult to draft a privacy policy when you're using agentic AI?
Yes. It summarizes because right now we do not know that what are the different components that we have to do and the overall AI architecture, Stephen, right? The AI model architecture is something that is evolving and everybody is trying to do that there something and the regulation are not binding. So yes, it is definitely defining that how to define the contractual terms in the AI area.
Okay. Malini, could you tell us a little bit about the use of agentic AI in the consumer space? And then what is its effect on consumer privacy?
Okay, yeah, I think Ramakant already covered, I think, most of my answers. But yeah, I mean, what he said is right. While doing the data collection, whether it is for the users or whether it's for consumers, it's more or less the same. So talking about agentic AI, which is now evolving, in agentic AI, basically everything is autonomous with a minimal human intervention, but it works as a workflow, right? Whether you take it N8N or any of those agentic AIs, which works collaboratively with ChatGPT or with whether it's other LLM models that we have. So I would say the collection of the data is one of the concern. Well, the user should be aware what the data is being collected, and the consent should be built in. That is one concern which I think there is the consent which the user should know what exactly kind of PII data or the health records, or it could be travel related information, or it could be their email which is being managed by the agentic AI workflow. So there should be a consent taken from the users. That one concern should be addressed. On top of that, I would say the kind of architecture that we have currently on agentic AI, that kind of that level of transparency should be built in. Transparency, explainability, and the responsible AI. These three major concerns which I see from the user's perspective, consumers' perspective, which should be addressed. And also the data collection part, right? Overly extra data is being collected, and that should be restricted in the way we are building our agentic AI models. That can be done in a way the architecture is built, which we can talk about when in the next question that you have for me, where I can explain that. But yeah, these are some of the concerns which I feel should be addressed. There is one more concern which is on the hallucination part of it as well, which needs to be addressed, which we have seen lately. There are some concerns on that, which also should be treated in a way that the way the architecture is built, so that we can address it.
What are good examples of agentic AI in the consumer space?
The examples I would say the healthcare is doing really building really good agentic AI models where the privacy is being built in to make sure that the PII data is restricted to the it's limited to the user specific. So whenever an agentic AI model runs, you can actually really get a good um, uh, uh, the data that is required is very specific and limited to what you are looking for and not like a widespread. Of course, there are other areas also like travel, which I mentioned, one of the area, and then there is also where you can actually talk to the bots, kind of agents, which runs and then it gives you the information that is required from the health perspective. It could be health in terms of the personal health, or it could be from the overall um, uh, uh, patient health perspective as well.
Okay. Navi, coming to you. So there are the developers of the AI applications, and then there are the deployers. So the deployer uses the AI application. If something goes wrong, the deployers is liable. So what do you think are the key issues for the deployers?
Thank you for bringing up this important distinction that in data privacy, we are looking at AI deployers who are data fiduciaries. The concerns they have is completely different from the concerns of an AI developer, about which we discuss a lot. See, whenever we talk of AI governance structure and other things, we always have in mind the developer. So when we say explainability, the person who has developed is aware. Now, who is the deployer, who is a data fiduciary? He is not an expert in AI. In fact, he is an expert in the service delivery. I know something to do, and I am looking at various software. Somebody comes and says, my software is AI driven, use this. I really do not know what is AI at all at that particular stage. I am only asking for functionalities. I said, this is the functionality, and let me know whether your software does it or not. So most of the AI deployers, particularly those whom are calling as fiduciaries, their ability to make an assessment of the AI is on a lower end. Their expertise is something different. That is why risks are more here. Apart from that, the risk is the penalty, which is a very, very high. See, when you use an AI for a technical reason, you are looking at convenience and functionality. But when you are using AI for a processing of personal data, we are doing it for legal compliance. I cannot go wrong. If I go wrong, my business has to be closed down. That is much different from, it is like the difference between what we say in compliance, ISO 27001 and say GDPR or DPDPA compliance. One is the best industry policy. The other is a legal compliance mandate. So if I fail here, I may go to jail. If I fail there, I may have to only perhaps negotiate with my customer why I could not do it differently. So data privacy is one area where we have to look at this differently. That is the AI deployer's responsibility. Okay.
Thanks. So we figure out there are issues. The issues are inherited by the deployers.
Okay.
And then now we move on to the
I will just
assessments.
answer that particular this thing. So Indian law uses the term fiduciary. Fiduciary means that he is the trustee. He is expected to know what is good for the data principle, and he has to do everything himself. So when he uses AI, he takes actually the legal responsibility for that. Now, if AI is an agentic AI, as we are talking of, the level of autonomy is much, much higher than when I use AI as my own software tool. See, if I use AI and then at the end of it, I get the output and I look at the output and take a decision, yes or no, it is complete human intervention. It is fine. It is like any other software. But when I link the agentic AI with the consumer, as we were talking of, the moment it starts interacting with a consumer, either for collecting personal data or for giving out decisions, then you are allowing autonomous decision to reach the marketplace. In which case, if there is any mistake, error, then that responsibility has to be fixed. Now, who is the person who has to take the responsibility? As far as the consumer is concerned, he is dealing with me, the service provider, so I will be the first person who is answerable. Back end, I need to have contractual confirmations with the AI supplier, vendor, or whoever is that, and make him indemnify for any losses which may be caused to me on account of either hallucination or anything else. I don't think there is any logic for me to accept hallucination as a risk to be managed. I will not say that it is something which is an acceptable risk. Hallucination should be zero when we are talking of data privacy. Otherwise, I am talking of 250 crores plus, okay, as penalty. Okay. Now, technology people must remember, don't give me excuse that hallucination is natural for AI. Nothing should be natural. It is not a convenience or something like that. It is a question of 250 plus crores of this thing. So don't give me any AI which has got hallucination rating, whatever way you rate it, even if it is 5%. Today we were talking of in another session, 80% kind of error statement. How can I accept a software which at 80% of this case, time it may go wrong, and it is experts' view in a survey, survey. And definitely we, as Mr. Stephen also will agree, we cannot go to the court and justify that I started using something which has an 80% error rate, and now that customer is complaining, but I don't want to pay any compensation to him because 80% is normal. That's what I heard in my summit or something like that. Anything, even 5%, I am not comfortable. Okay, error statement should be 1% or less than that. Okay, so that is the responsibility to be transferred by contract to the AI supplier. That is the accountability. We always feel that there has to be a human handler for every AI. And that is the framework which we have adopted. Every AI supplier, I will ask him, if something goes wrong, on whom should I file the case? Give me the name and address of that person. Okay, he is the human handler for that. Otherwise, there is no way you can transfer your production risks to me. See, earlier in software, we have been handling bugs. But in all those cases, if it doesn't work, then I have to still take the decision to do. But here, the decision has been transmitted to a consumer. I cannot take the risk. My risk-taking capability should be zero.
Navi, I'm the lawyer on this panel, but you've spoken like a true lawyer.
Okay.
So what we have to do next then is, I guess, maybe some form of privacy assessment, right? So Akhilesh, how do we go about that? Because I think the reality is that for decades, if you look at like a typical software license, right? The lawyer for the licensee will want 100% guarantee. The company providing it will never give that, right? And it's stated clearly in the document. That's even more so in AI. So how do we deal with that?
Great question, Stephen. So I'll give an example. So Malini was talking about travel industry, right? So I'm a frequent traveler. I used to travel and stay at hotels, right? Previously, what I used to do, I used to go to the hotel manager and easily get an upgrade. I can charm my way in, talk to them. It's a human relationship. Now, last week when I went there and I asked the hotel manager, can I get an upgrade? He told me, actually, it's no longer possible because we are using an agentic AI. So all the decision making now is going to happen through an AI agent. And I no longer have a control on that. Now, previously when it was done, it was just because the person knows me and I was able to do it. Now what is happening is, the system knows about my personal data, how frequently I travel, what kind of rooms I prefer, where do I stay, and what is the probability that I come back again, right? It processes a lot of volume of data to do that. Now, what kind of assessments can help us to prevent, like to safeguard it, right? So the first thing is we need to do a DPIA, which is mandated in GDPR. In a way, it is also mandated under DPDPA and even a lot of laws, right? So what does DPIA do is that it helps us understand at a process level what kind of risks are there. First is DPI done. The second is we do something called as privacy by design assessment. When we do something like a privacy by design assessment, what I'm trying to understand is, right at the time of deployment itself, what kind of risk I have, what kind of measures I have implemented, whether it's a data minimization, it can be encryption, role-based access control. So right at the time of deployment itself, I'm trying to understand my risk, and I'm also trying to mitigate that. And the third thing that we do is something called as algorithmic assessment. So when we do this algorithmic assessments, we are trying to understand the biases in the system. We are also trying to understand whether this algorithm can explain about transparency, explainability. Now, I was talking about that, right? How transparency and explainability is more important. So can my algorithm explain to the end user how it is happening? If it can do that, that's a good agentic AI. And if it doesn't do that, that's where the risk comes. So these are the three type of assessments we need to do. But on top of that, since AI is ever evolving, we need to have something called as continuous monitoring, so that it ensures when my AI learns and creates new biases, I'm able to identify that. That's the expectation from an agentic AI.
Do you think there's a tendency in these assessments to kind of overplay the risk, with the result that the customer or the company is left with the document that highlights too many risks, and then they feel like, okay, maybe we shouldn't do this?
Right. Sometimes what happens is, from a business perspective, by having that agentic AI can reduce a lot of cost for the operations. So we also need to consider the business value. My objective when I'm doing this assessment should consider the business value as well as the total risk that is there, inherent risk that remains, right? If the inherent risk is low, at some point it should be acceptable for the businesses to accept the agentic AI. But if we just go at the risk and we are not able to mitigate it, and if you're not deploying an agentic AI, then it will kind of lost to the business.
Okay. Malini, turning to you, how about just doing privacy by design, building it into the AI model, as well as AI governance? And do you think then that can hurt innovation?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, as I was saying in my previous response, and also as mentioned by one of the panelists, privacy by design is pretty much required in all the AI models as well as agentic AI models. We need to do a data privacy impact assessment. We should also follow ISO 42001 standard, which talks about doing an AI impact assessment as well, which will make sure that all our AI models are in line with the ISO 42001 requirements, which talks about AI governance. So when we are building agentic AI models or an AI model, we should make sure that the way we have designed our models are taken care of from the privacy perspective. That there is a concept called federated learning, that from the architecture perspective I'm talking about when we are saying privacy by design. There is a concept called federated learning. We should build that into our models. Federated learning is when actually the model actually learns in a very decentralized manner, and it's not like a centralized server and all the data is there in a centralized server and it shares the data of all the users. So it is a decentralized in-app data collection of the user. For example, if I'm building an app within that particular mobile device, the data is restricted to that particular user, and it's not collecting the data of multiple users, and that data get exposed, and the privacy data gets exposed as well. So federated learning is something should be practiced, and there is something also called differential AI. Again, that should be practiced, wherein we actually focus specifically on the AI aspects, where we are focusing only on that particular flow of that data that is being built into the AI model. And not look at other flows. Like for example, there was a travel, if I am traveling, only my specific flow of travel is being captured and not other passenger travels gets exposed. So that is something should be built into the privacy by design. And also, as I was saying, from the AI governance perspective, we should do a AI impact assessment based on the ISO 42001 standards, which is, I would say, kind of right now the gold standard for AI model building, and as well as making sure that there is an AI governance built in. There is a continuous monitoring, which was talked about, that is also should be part of our privacy by design model that we have. And also it should take care of other aspects like the hallucinations. There is a drifting of AI, which is, for example, if I have built an AI model with certain data right at this point in time, at a later point in time, that data might not be useful at all. So I have to make sure that the right data is being fed in, so that every time I do a reassessment and make sure that my model is up to date, because I don't get kind of old data, and then the model is giving the predictions based on the old data. So that is something very important to me.
So talking about data, Ramakant, how do we ensure like accurate data is being used? How do we ensure that the accuracy of the data?
Yeah. So in order to have the data accuracy is enhanced, or it is there, right? So what you have to do, you have to select the right set of AI models and really test them and validate them before you use, because many of the AI models that are coming, and sometimes the accuracy levels is not known. That is one. And also there is a continuous learning that needs to happen, right? We have to feed the real data, synthetic data to generate the accuracy levels. And it is a continuous improvement based on the type of data and the different demographics of data. That is very, very important. In order to do that, as part of the accuracy is concerned, we should never forget about the type of data that is coming in. That is known as data cleansing. You have to do a lot of data cleansing before it comes, and get set into that to provide and get into that. And as part of the overall framework, we should ensure that there is a data deletion that happens. But if you look at in AI, the philosophy is that we have to have more data because it will give more and more accuracy. But we should have a mechanism to delete some of the data which are not used over a period of time, or the fields or the type of data that are coming in becoming redundant. So that also a cleaning process should happen as well. And one more thing, once you put all this, and the framework that needs to be used is responsible AI, so that it gives a lot of connect with the models. That is one. Another one, before I hand over to Stephen, is that one more point that we have to do, a lot of different vendors or the players, they're building a lot of AI models. But we are not sure that whenever we are giving or using some other models, it is accurate or not. And of course, it is open source, or it is whitelisted or not. So we should ensure, and whenever we use them in our contracts, we should have that third-party assessment of their models has to be done before you take them into our own works.
Okay. Akhilesh, the one aspect about agentic AI is its autonomous nature, right? So the EU has this rule about human intervention when taking decisions based on personal data of human beings. So how do you kind of deal with the two? They seem to be like at conflict with each other.
Right. So under EU GDPR, what happens is that if there is a complete autonomous decision making, which can impact the data subject, in that case, there should be human intervention. That's the nuance. If it's autonomous decision, but the impact is less, in that case, it is allowed based on the consent of the user. But however, under DPDP, there is no direct provision where it involves the human intervention. Yeah. However, considering the landscape of India and the humongous volume of data that we process, it is advisable that they have something for human in loop, we call it, right, where human can have an intervention. But nowadays, if you look at the banking system, right, previously, when a loan was rejected, it's right through autonomous system basis only, it used to reject the loan or approve the loan. But now, right now, most of the bankings are allowing something called as a grievance redressal. If my loan gets rejected, I have the option to raise a grievance saying that, could you review it again? And now, in a way, DPDP is also allowing us to go ahead and raise the grievance and get some human to review my documents. So in a way, we are still having that provision, but not as an explicit under the law.
Yeah,
okay.
In ISO 42001, there is a provision you can actually raise a request and request for a grievance, like he was saying that I can actually ask for, can there be a human intervention so that I can get a better response if they think that the AI is not accurate.
Okay.
So that is an option for them.
So on the subject of the EU and all its regulations, Navi, we have the AI Act in the EU, and they have a requirement of a assessment document. So can you tell us a little bit about what that is, what does it entail, and do you think it's a good idea?
See, one of the things which EU AI Act has spoken of is something called conformity assessment to be provided by the AI developer to the AI deployer. And also there is a mention about post-deployment monitoring. So these are the two measures with which the deployer can try to mitigate his risk. India is already having, under the Information Technology Act, a provision which says any software you take, if it is giving an autonomous decision, that autonomous decision should be attributed to the person who has caused that autonomous decision making. So without any need for another India AI Act, as of now itself, we can bring legal liability on the AI developers and deployers if there is an adverse consequence of the AI usage. So this is something which I would like everybody to remember. So you have to take as a fiduciary due diligence to ensure and mitigate the risk to the extent possible. Now, what is the extent possible, what is not possible is a matter of debate when a situation arises.
Great, thanks. Do we have time for questions?
One last question we can
One
take.
question? Okay.
Yeah. One question,
Who's
please.
the lucky person with the one question?
Anybody wants to have?
Okay, all questions answered.
No.
Thank you for a wonderful panel for your insights, and we look forward to the next issue.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stephen, Akhilesh, Malini, Ramakant, and Navi. I think if there are no questions, as he said, right, so everything has gone. It's like all the insights, whatever was shared, they're absolutely okay with it. And I'm really glad to have you all in this podium. And thank you so much. So this clearly shows that privacy is the foundation for a clear trust of AI, right? So with this said, thank you so much, all the leaders here. I would like to take a moment to felicitate you. Thank you so much.